Hi Booktube, Lynette here from Lynette Reads. Just coming to you after a 3-month break. First of all, I wanted to say I'm sorry for the break, and I just wanted to come on and explain why there's been a break. I've had a couple of new subscribers as well, so they're probably thinking, oh well, she's not making videos anymore, why have I subscribed? So I just wanted to let you know what's been going on. Back at the beginning of February, when I last videoed, my fiance made some commitments on our time, which then made me have to choose between reading and Booktube, and I chose reading. So that stopped me from making videos for the majority of the month of February. And then at the end of February, my fiance and I decided to separate. And since then, I've been in a bit of a reading slump. So it's been a bit off and on, my reading, a bit up and down. And I've only read 6 books in the course of February, March and April, which is not like me at all. 6 books is, usually a good half a month's reading for me, 2 to 3 weeks worth of reading for me. So I have been in a bit of a slump, and I have been struggling to find things to read, partly because a lot of the books I read are romance novels, and I'm finding it a bit difficult at the moment to get on board with other people's happy ever afters. So I am struggling a bit with that at the moment, and the other books that I was reading at the time, and a lot of the books that I own, are then either quite full of information, fantasy novels, science fiction, things where you need to be paying attention to actually get the most out of the book. And again, my brain, every time I try and engage with a book like that, is just going, no way, can't do it. So that's what's been stopping me from reading. Like I said, I have managed to read 6 books in the last 3 months. And as part of that, I want to get back into filming because I have my time back. Obviously, I have all of my time back now, apart from the hours I'm at work. So now I'm starting to feel like I'm coming out of the slump a bit. I wanted to try and get back to filming for you as well, and especially as I've got some new subscribers come in the last few weeks. So hi. So yes, so that's what's been going on with me. Also, I've watched 5 complete series of Game of Thrones as well. I saw the first series when it came out originally, and then never watched any of the others because they were on Sky, and I don't have Sky. I can't afford to pay for the subscription for it. But my brother and sister-in-law, back at the end of March, very kindly signed me onto their Sky account so that I can use their Sky account on my phone, and I can watch box sets and catch up TV on there, so that I could continue on. So I could watch the series 2 to 7 of Game of Thrones, and now that series 8 is on Sky Atlantic, I've been watching those episodes as they air as well. So that's what I've been doing. So without further ado, let's talk about the books that I have managed to read in the last 3 months. The first book was actually gifted to me by an author. It was an advanced reader copy. The author is called Felicity Heaton. She writes some paranormal, supernatural type romance novels. And one of her series that she's written, called Her Angel, she's actually decided to split into 2 separate series. And as part of that, she's also introduced a new character and a new story arc into the first set of books that will be released now. She was sending out arcs of the previous 3 books. She did those before Christmas, and I received those, and because I reviewed those for her on time, she then, when she was ready to gift out the 4th one, she sent me a copy as well, and I received a copy of a book called Bound Angel. Bound Angel is about a character called Rook, who is a fallen angel. He is living in the depths of hell, and he is actually high up in the devil's army at this time. His fated partner, because this is kind of a fated mates type story, is called Isadora, and she is a witch. She's a young witch, however, she has been on the earth at this point for a couple of 100 years, and she's been kept alive through magic and spells, and because of some other issues, which actually relates to Rook and Isadora's story. So I can't give that away, because if you pick the book up, then I'll have spoilt you, and that's not fair. So it's about how Rook regains his memories. As a fallen angel, he has lost his memories, and it's how they learn to love each other again and learn all about each other again. And it's quite a sweet story. I actually really enjoyed it. If you like quick romances, quick books to read, and you like your romance, and you don't like, too heavy a story, that Felicity Heaton is very good at writing a good story without having to throw every plot device at it for romance. So I do highly recommend it. So go and look up. The series is called Her Angel. Felicity has her own website where she lists all of her series. So go and give that one a try. The second book that I read was called The Raven Prince, and it's by an author called Elizabeth Hoyt. Again, this is a romance novel. This time is a historical romance novel, and I read this as part of my Romanceopoly reads that I was trying to do this year. This book is about a widow called Anna, and is the Earl of Swartingham. The Earl of Swartingham needs a new secretary because his has just quit. He's going through secretaries at a rate of knots because he's quite difficult to work for. Anna applies for the position and is given the position, but unknowingly to the Earl that it's her. And she goes to work for him over a weekend when he's not there, and proves her worth as a secretary for the Earl's needs. And then once he comes back, obviously he was quite a difficult man to work for before, and Anna challenges him and proves that actually she can stand up to him, and that she is the exception to the rule and will not bow down to his behaviour. So they start to work together, and obviously as they get to know each other, they're developing feelings for each other. But for a variety of reasons, the two of them shouldn't really be together, because the Earl is promised to someone else, Anna is a widow, and it's not expected of her to move on. The story is how they come together. Anna decides to take quite a drastic action because she wants to be with the Earl, even if it's only once. Sorry, my cat's decided to get in here as well. And sorry, that looked like I just pushed him back out of the way. I didn't, I promise. He actually backed away when he realised I was going to make a fuss. Yes, so Anna takes drastic action to try to be with the Earl. And unfortunately, the Earl finds out, and it does spoil their relationship, their friendship, ultimately. So it's how they overcome all of that and overcome the prejudices and the fact that the Earl is already engaged to someone else, and find their happy ever after. Again, I really enjoyed reading it. It was funny in parts, it was sad in parts, it was infuriating in parts as well, because obviously the time period that this is set in, things are very different for women. So it is very much a testament to how far women have come in the last 100 or so years. And yes, I did really enjoy it, and I do recommend it. The next book that I read was Possessed by a Dark Warrior but again by Felicity Heaton. This time it wasn't an ARC copy. This book came out a couple of years ago. It's part of a series that she's called Fated Mates, and I'm actually quite a way behind with this series now. I think I'm about halfway through the series. This is book number 9, and I think she is around book 17 now in the series. Possessed by a Dark Warrior is about the warrior elf assigned to look after the king in this world, the king of the elves, Prince Lauren. And this elf is called Blue. Blue has popped up quite a bit in previous books, and in one of the previous books you thought he was going to get his happy ever after, and he didn't. Unfortunately, the lady doesn't actually realise she was fated to be with someone else, and obviously Blue has been quite broken by that. In this story, Blue comes across someone that he's come across before. A sword was stolen from his prince many years before, and off and on Blue has been on the trail of the thief, who it turns out is his fated mate. So this is their story, how they realise they're fated mates, because you know they're fated from the beginning, but they don't. So it's all about how they come to the realisation, but also they're in some great danger as well at this point, and it's how they protect each other and work out, so defeat the danger that they're in. Again, it's a bit of an infuriating novel at times. You do want to bang Blue and his loved one's head together, but yes, at the end of the day they have their happy ever after. Again, it's not heavy on plot, so it is a quick, easy read, and if you like your paranormal romances, then I would recommend this book to you. Felicity Heaton has such a great writing style, and I thoroughly enjoy everything she writes. So the next book that I read after Possessed by a Dark Warrior was a book called Dearest Ivy by an author called J.R. Ward. This is a novella set in Ward's Black Dagger Brotherhood world, and it does feature a couple of characters that we know from previous books in this series, but obviously they're not prominent. It's just how it links it to you to the world. The book is about a nurse called Ivy. She is a vampire. I should point out the Black Dagger Brotherhood is about a world of vampires living in secret in the human world. She works in the local hospital for vampires, and one day she meets another vampire called Silas. And Silas is an aristocrat in this world, and the two of them meet and decide to spend time together, and they actually start to fall for each other. However, Silas reveals that he has to go back and live in the old country, which is the way Ward writes it. It's as though it's Eastern European in setting. So they make the most of their time together that they have, because they realise that they should be together. Only Silas isn't being honest, and Ivy finds out the truth. And it's quite an upsetting truth. It is quite a tearjerker. And it is, so be prepared. If you do pick this book up, be prepared to shed a tear or two. It's a very short book, so I can't really give you too much information. I would recommend it. It can be read as a standalone. However, if you've read the rest of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, you'll have more of an understanding of the world that they live in, and maybe why Ivy and Silas, from their positions in the world, shouldn't be together, and obviously why they have to overcome that initially. However, again, a great book. Really enjoyed it. It was a very quick read, and I was at this point I was starting to hit the slump, So this was quite a quick read for me, and I did manage to get through it fairly quickly, and I'm glad that I picked it up. So those 4 books were read in quick succession. However, that took me through around about to early March. However, that's when I really stopped to read, and I didn't pick up another book again until the end of March. And that was a new release book called Winning Sky Hunter by Jessie Donovan. Winning Sky Hunter is a book in her Stonefire Dragons universe, and it's about, in this case, instead of about the Stonefire Dragons, it's about a dragon clan called Sky Hunter. Sky Hunter, if you've read any of Jessie Donovan's books, you'll know Sky Hunter is a bit of a rogue clan. They've had some problems with leadership, and their leadership has been torn down, and this book, Winning Sky Hunter, is about their choosing of a new leader for the clan. The story actually features Asher King and Honoria Wakeman. Again, it's a romance novel, so it's their story. When they were teenagers, they were very, very good friends, and in fact, they were falling for each other as teenagers. However, Honoria was moved away to America at that time, because that was when all the trouble was really starting with Sky Hunter. Asher was related to the leader of Sky Hunter at that time, and he was quite badly abused by him and ended up spending time in prison because he was standing up for other members of the clan who were being badly treated by the leadership at that time. Asher and Honoria are going up against each other to become the leaders of Sky Hunter. And it's the story of how during this leadership contest, how they come together, learn to work together, and also learn to fall in love again with each other. It's a feel-good story. There is a little bit of danger, and it's how they overcome the danger as well. But also, this world is quite prejudiced towards women in some ways. They're not quite as forward-thinking as the human world. Women are not seen as potential leaders in this world. So it's about proving that Honoria is capable of being a leader as well as any man in the contest. And as a result, they fall in love, and it's you find out who does become Sky Hunter's new clan leader. I won't tell you because that would give it away. And it's how they move forward from that decision. Again, another good, solid romance novel. If you like a bit of paranormal in there. Jessie's written quite a few stories in this Stonefire world now. There is actually the Stonefire series, there's the Lockguard Highland Dragons, and then there's a spin-off series which is called Stonefire Universe, which is books set in other clans around the UK and potentially Australia, from what Jessie's been saying on her social media recently. I then had another slump, and I then didn't pick up a book until mid-April. The next book that I picked up, I was just going through the books on my Kindle and just going through them one by one by one, and just looking at titles, looking at covers, and just seeing if anything stood out to me at all. I was trying to resort to favourite authors because I've got a couple of books by favourite authors that I haven't gotten to yet. They weren't enticing me. And then one day, middle of April, I was flicking through, and this book, Love in Lingerie by Alessandra Torre, showed up. And it was one I owned anyway, so it was just that I happened to spot it. And it jumped out at me off the screen, and I was able to sit down and read at that point. So I sat down and I read it almost cover to cover. I think it was in about 2 sittings. Again, it's another romance novel. This book is about a couple called Kate and Trey. Trey owns a lingerie business which is struggling, and he needs to bring someone new into the business to help rebuild the brand again. That employee is Kate, and Trey has a rule that he will not sleep with his employees because of a bad experience in the past. However, there is a very strong attraction between Kate and Trey, and this story is how they become friends, and you do see them becoming friends, which is the great thing. You're not just thrown in immediately into a friendship that is then going to move on to something else. You see the building of the friendship first, but also as a result of seeing the building of the friendship, you see the building of them falling in love as well, because it all becomes one. It's just that they have to become friends first before they realise there can be more. And then essentially that is the story, is how they then become more. And it is a friends to lovers romance trope. The friends to lovers section does go very, very quickly, but it's good telling. Thoroughly enjoyed it. There was lots of laughs along the way because Kate would call Trey out on things quite a lot, and it was actually quite humorous. And I really enjoy Alessandra Torre's writing style. In particular in this book, it hooked me and gripped me quite early on, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to reading more by her in the future when I have some spare pennies to invest in her books. So that was the last romance book that I have read, but it was the beginning of me feeling like I could pick books up again. I didn't want romance. I realised that actually, as much as I'd enjoyed the last couple of romances, because I was looking at mainly romances, I think that was why I was in a bit of a slump. And then I was watching Game of Thrones as well. So I think I figured out that actually I needed to move away. I needed to try something that was going to make me laugh, but was going to be, again, more of the fantasy fiction that I own, but maybe not some of the heavy fantasy fiction. I did try and pick up one of my favourite authors, Robin Hobb. I couldn't do it, just couldn't do it. But in the process of doing that, I was looking at the books that I'd had started but hadn't really gone anywhere with, and one of those was a book called The Light Fantastic by Terry Pratchett. I'm sure if you've read Terry Pratchett, you'll know that this was probably going to be the perfect book to get me back into reading. And yes, it worked so well. The Light Fantastic is the story of Rincewind and his companions this time. He's still with Two Flower. This is the second book in the Discworld series. It was the second book that he actually published in this series. So Rincewind and Two Flower were the main characters you were following in A Colour of Magic, and again they are in this one too. Rincewind and Two Flower, you're picking up with Rincewind has just fallen off the edge of the Discworld, and Two Flower is in a submersible off the side of the Discworld, looking at the four elephants that are supporting the Discworld, but on the back of the great Atuin, the turtle, who's floating through space with the four elephants and Discworld on his back. So it's the story of the great turtle Atuin is actually going through space, and he's heading towards a sun, and it's the danger that the Discworld is then in, and apparently Rincewind has a spell in his head which will save the world. And the spell is trying to keep him alive because it needs him alive to be said in the first place. It's about their adventures, how they are captured because the Wizarding University, Unseen University, put out for Rincewind to be caught and brought back to the university so that he can put the spell back in the book and say the spell. But also there is a bit of an evil Arch-Chancellor at the university who wants the spell back for his own reasons. And it's how all of that happens. To tell you anything would spoil it. You really do need to experience Terry Pratchett's books without having been spoiled. You need to read them as they are. Go into them knowing nothing. So once I'd finished that, I was like, well, what else can I read? I really want to keep reading. I'm really looking forward to reading more, and I'm getting back into this. I'm getting the taste for it. So I decided to pick up the third book in the Discworld series, and that was Equal Rights. And this book is about a witch initially called Granny Weatherwax, and a young girl called Escarina Smith. On the day of Escarina's birth, a wizard comes to Escarina's valley because he knows that there is to be an 8th son of an 8th son being born. Now, only the 8th son of an 8th son can become a wizard on the Discworld. And this wizard is very old and is about to meet death. And he wants to pass on his knowledge to someone new. So he goes to the home where the 8th son of the 8th son is going to be born, and he waits there and he decides to pass away at the moment of birth. Unfortunately, there's a bit of an incident, and instead of being an 8th son of an 8th son, she's a daughter, Escarina. Unfortunately, the deed is done before the wizard can be told that it's a daughter, and he bequeaths all his powers and knowledge to her without ever knowing that it's a girl, until it's too late and death has come round and ended his life. Death is an actual real character in the Discworld, and will have his own books later on in the series. So that's... And then it's the tales then of how Escarina grows up. Initially, Granny Weatherwax tries to subvert the magic and tries to make Escarina a witch instead, and teaches her witch lore. But at the age of around 8, they realise that they can't hold the magic in Escarina any longer, and actually they need to try and get her enrolled into Unseen University to become a wizard fully. Unfortunately, on the Discworld... Hi, but something's gone wrong with the recording, and it didn't record the last couple of minutes of the review that I was doing. So, to continue on, on the Discworld, girls can't be wizards, and this book is the telling of how Escarina gets to the university, the troubles that she causes along the way, and also the trouble that then subsequently happens at the university after her arrival, and whether she can become a wizard or not. You have to keep reading to find out. So those were all the books I've actually managed to read in the last 3 months. As I say, it's an average of about 2 books a month. I'm hoping that my reading is now going to pick up pace. I don't think I'm going to be back to reading 7 to 10 books a month. But I may be able to check in a couple of times a month with you rather than once every 3 months now. So hopefully I will be speaking to you all again soon. Have a lovely bank holiday wherever you are, if you're in the UK, and enjoy the rest of your weekend wherever you are in the rest of the world. And I will see you all again soon. Bye, BookTube.